Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next month. We go 40 days ahead with this, broken down into 10-day periods. So it's going to take us towards the end of May. We'll be going up to the end of spring with this update. Of course, we've got this cold weather coming up later on this weekend and inside of next week. You can find out more about that on the 5-day forecast. In the 5-day forecast, you can find the 5-day forecast video just by scrolling down the homepage a little bit, and if you go underneath the link ads, you'll be able to see the 5-day forecast underneath them. So that will tell you all about the cold weather that's coming up at the weekend and into next week. May update the blog on that tonight as well. But this update is going to have a look at the month ahead with Beijing Climate Centre. We'll have a look at what the model is showing for the next 40 days. But before I get on with that, just say about the ads. So there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse through the widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. And thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages, which open up the content when you watch them. They'll close back up again. And it all helps to pay for gasnumbers.com. So thanks so much for getting involved. And thanks for doing that. Right, we'll start off with the 500 millibar height anomalies for the next month. And then we'll have a look at the corresponding temperature and precipitation anomalies. So, as you know with this, red, yellow, the brighter colours always extrapolate to high pressure, and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So the first 10-day period will be taking us from the 21st of April through to the 30th. The dates are at the top of the chart. And what we see for the coming 10 days is that we've got a ridge out to the west and the northwest, and a trough here across eastern, northeastern parts of Europe. So it means that the jet stream is doing something rather like that, and it does place us on the cold side of jet. We know you're going to have this cold snap coming up with the wind coming down from the north or the northwest in that sort of direction. So although the ridge protects us from the Atlantic to some degree, it is going to be cold, and there's going to be the chance of some wintry conditions, especially through the early part of next week. Now, we go through to the first 10 days of May, so this takes us from the 1st through to the 10th of May, and everything sort of flips around and returns to a much more typical, much more normal type pattern. So we find a deep trough setting in around Greenland and Iceland, where before we had that ridge, and then we have ridging down to the south and the southwest. What's essentially happening here is that the flow is returning to the west. We're bringing the westerlies back in with the jet stream. It could still be quite unsettled. That's a fairly deep trough there up to the north and west of Scotland. So I'd expect perhaps even more unsettled in the coming 10 days. There'll be bands of rain probably coming through with that. But with the flow returning from a northerly to a westerly direction, the temperatures should be turning significantly less cold. It should be turning milder through the first 10 days of May. That covers the bank holiday weekend, of course. The next 10 days is taking us from the 11th through to the 20th of May, looking like this. Still quite unsettled, really. Trough of low pressure still coming in off the Atlantic. A ridge has pulled back into the central part of the Atlantic. I think the jet stream is probably returning a bit to the south again, if anything, maybe going a bit to the south in that sort of fashion. So I would suspect that's going to be fairly unsettled, and probably a bit cooler as well, actually, through the middle 10 days of May. I'll have a look at the temperature and precipitation anomalies that go with this in a second. And then finally, the day 30 to 40, or day 31 to 40 charts, going from the 21st through to the 30th of May, so up to the end of spring, looks like this. And this looks quite a bit better, actually. Ridge building up from the south and the southwest. This trough is out to the south of Greenland, and the jet stream is being moved northwards as well. So I think that could be a warmer, drier period as we're going through into the final stages of May. That could be very nice. It might give us our first sort of little burst of summer, perhaps. I don't want to go too over top with that, but it does look a bit better there with the Azores high starting to ridge up. Right, let's have a look at the temperature anomalies then that go with this. So the coming 10 days, as we know, is going to be quite a cold period, and the temperature anomalies coming out cooler than average, colder than average. We're in the blue colours there. Look how cool it is across most parts of Europe as well. Proper cold week to 10 days coming up if the Beijing Climate Centre has got this right. I think it probably has. Now, everything reverts round to the west as we go through the first 10 days of May. So we expect the temperatures to be lifting up. That's what the model is showing. It becomes a little bit milder than average there, and through central parts of Europe as well. Those cold temperatures being pushed into the east of Europe and into western Russia. So temperatures do recover as we get through into May. The next week, remember we said this is when the jet stream started to push southwards again a bit. So the next 10 days, this is from the 11th to the 20th of May, going cooler than average in the blue colours. And then finally, I thought this could be a bit better. I thought it looked like the Azores high was starting to ridge up, but actually the temperature's still nothing to write home about for the final 10 days of May. Still looking, well, around average, even erring a little bit on the cooler side of average. So overall, a pretty cool May coming up, actually. We do get that warmer interlude at the start of the month when the throw reverts back to the west. But other than that, it does look like a pretty cool May on the way, and I think that would probably, if it came off like this, it would probably give us a cooler than average season for the spring. Precipitation anomalies, finally, so over the coming 10 days, generally a bit drier than average. You would expect that because we're blocking off the Atlantic, so although it is going to be quite cold, and there could be some wintry conditions, especially over high ground in the north, overall the precipitation is coming out a little bit drier than average. The next 10-day period, and this is when everything reverts back to the west, so we enhance the jet stream, push the westerlies back in. This one goes wetter than average, so you pay your money and you take your choice, really, because although, yes, the temperatures will be lifting up through the first 10 days of May, the price we pay is that it turns more unsettled. We start to bring more rain back in off the Atlantic through the first stages of the month. The next 10 days, the middle 10 days of May, from the 11th to the 20th, that comes out generally about average rainfall, so maybe a little bit drier than average, if anything. But remember, I think the jet stream's digging back to the south of us again through this period. And then the day 31 to 40 charts going from the 21st to the 30th of May, looking like this. Again, generally, it's a little bit drier than average, but remember, the temperature anomalies are nothing to write home about in this period. Although I do think maybe this is transitional, so it perhaps starts off quite cool, but I would suspect if the Azores high does build up in that final 10 days, as the model showed on the 500 millibar heights, if the Azores high starts to build up in that final 10 days, we should see a warming trend. So I'm going to say we might get a little first burst of summer at some point through the last week to 10 days of May. But overall, it looks like a fairly cool month coming up again, although it gets a bit milder early May. And precipitation, pretty variable, but generally perhaps a little bit on the drier side of everything. So cooler and drier perhaps is being seen at the moment for May, albeit with a warmer, wetter spell in the first 10 days. So that's how Beijing Climate Centre is looking this week for the coming month. We'll do it again next Wednesday. This is a regular feature now at gazweathers.com after the 5-day forecast. So come back next week. Of course, Friday we'll have JMA Friday as well, looking at the month ahead with the Japanese and CFS B2 models. That's it. Get out and enjoy the sunshine. It's a lovely, sunny, warm afternoon. It's not going to last much longer. Cold northerly winds, Arctic northerlies on the way for the weekend. So make the most of this afternoon's warm and sunny conditions. That's it for now then. Thanks for watching.